This is the Authentic Change Podcast, and I am Mike Horne. Authenticity reflects what we want from each other and our organizations: open communication, trust, community, fun, and opportunity. I want to help you to do your best in your personal and professional relationships. This podcast delivers expertise, insights, and approaches on authentic leadership, to live your purpose, to lead from your values, to establish connected relationships, to steward people and culture change, to build and sustain prosperity, and to open doors and possibilities. This podcast will assist you in paving the way forward to personal, team, and organizational prosperity. Welcome to the Authentic Change Podcast, where we help people and culture leaders to prosper in every situation and design workplaces where everyone does their best. I am delighted to welcome Marcia Ruben, Dr. Marcia Ruben, to Authentic Change with Mike Horne today. Marcia has an illustrious career, and it's difficult for me to know where to start because her roles have touched, I imagine, thousands. But let me tell you a little bit about Marcia, at least Marcia that I know, who has just such an impressive background. For more than 25 years, she's partnered with leadership teams and executives of Fortune 500, medium-sized, and startup firms. And she's really worked with people to increase their collaboration, to lead successful change, and to accelerate performance. She's been from high-tech and clean technology and biotech to financial services and education. And she coined a term, and Marcia, I hope we'll talk about this in relationship to authenticity and authentic leadership. She coined a term, organizational tangles. And she is also known, in addition to being Dr. Marcia Ruben, she is also the Untitled Doctor. Marcia, we could talk about that. Marcia is also the chair of the graduate department of management, the program director of the MS in leadership at Golden Gate University. She leads a consulting firm, Ruben Consulting Firm. And Marcia, I'm just delighted you're here. It's such a privilege to be with a teacher, a program director, a leader, a coach, and a consultant. Welcome to Authentic Change.
Thanks so much, Mike, for having me here. It's really delightful to be with you, and really enjoyed reading your book. It's really excellent. So congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you, Marcia. That's so nice of you. Marcia, tell our audience, our listeners, about your career. Hard for me to summarize it in a nutshell. I mean, you're affecting so many lives and so many people.
Well, you covered a lot of it, Mike, yourself. First of all, I've always been fascinated with human behavior and human development. And from a very early age, even as a young child, actually, my parents were both from Europe, and many of their family was killed in Europe during the Holocaust. And so that really impacted me deeply and really created for me my purpose in life, which was really about transformation. And, then it became leadership transformation. So as you said, I've been in the field of leadership and organizational development for more than 30 years. I've worked as an executive coach, an OD consultant, and a change management consultant for a variety of organizations, from startups to Fortune 50 companies. And I've worked with all levels of leaders. I went back and got my doctorate, and that was when I met you, Mike. And I was really fascinated because I had been working in a number of companies as a consultant, and I saw that there were things in the company that everybody knew about, kind of undiscussables. And there were some really gnarly, complex, tangled issues. And I really wanted to understand how to untangle them. So I went back and did my research on that. And so I came up with the term tangled and untangling after I finished my doctorate. And I can talk a little bit more about that later. But in 2012, I was invited to join the Graduate School of Business at Golden Gate University as a tenure track professor in the field of management and leadership. And so I'm now an associate professor I'm happy to say that I've been awarded 2 teaching awards in the last 8 years. And I was also awarded a 2-year research professorship. And I also had become very interested in neuroscience, leadership, and complexity. So I did some research around that. I was very fortunate. And I developed something that I called the NeuroSTROLL. That was kind of a fun thing. And then I also designed a master's in leadership, which we launched in the fall of 2018. And that's really grown. In fact, the enrollment has tripled in the last year, which I'm very proud to say. And I guess the other thing to know about me is that I'm a voracious learner. I'm constantly learning. I have a great FOMO, fear of missing out. So when I want to make sure that I'm up on everything, both for my executive coaching practice and also really to share with the students that I ever see and all of the adjunct professors that I ever see at this point.
And this idea, this way of being a voracious learner, I think it complements what you described earlier in terms of transformation and how you have fueled your purpose to work on that. What I've observed about the best coaches is they are about the business of transformation, not providing clients with more information.
Yes. I mean, I think, that's one of the other things. And I'm also fortunate because I teach a course in executive coaching, which I've now taught about 7 times. But really, coaching is really bringing out being a sounding board for clients and helping clients learn how to learn, to really develop an internal compass and to, I think, have greater capacity for complexity. And I think, as a coach, it's really important that I develop myself so that I can provide that development to my clients.
And Marcia, is there a room for a NeuroSTROLL in coaching and transformation work? Can you say more about that?
Yeah, the idea of the NeuroSTROLL was, because I'd been very interested in neuroscience and leadership development, was to develop a multidimensional, multimodal, multi-experiential process for people to go through to help accelerate the development of their goals. So the STROLL stood for, the S is for sensing. So using light, color, and sound as a way to accelerate a goal. The T stands for thinking. So to look at how, if you have negative thinking, to transform that into more positive thinking. The R stands for regulating. So being able to calm yourself down, to co-regulate with others, and to do some kindness, compassion, mindfulness exercise. The O stands for orienting, which has to do with mindset. So we had a couple of mindset exercises. And the L stands for, now I'm having a blank on the second, but it has to do with all sorts of things around goal setting, creating intentions, mental contrasting. And then the last L was leading yourself. So we did a meta exercise combining all of these. And so the idea was to give the people who participated a number of tools that they could use in reaching a goal. So it really drew on neuroscience and goal setting and habit formation.
Such a fascinating process. And as a consequence of people engaging in those activities, what results or outcomes did you experience, both as a developer of that model and as someone observing others moving through that process?
Well, I mean, I think for myself, it really opened my eyes that there's more than one way to reach a goal. So for instance, just imagining a color that when you think about it, puts you in a more receptive state to being open to the goal, or listening to music, to your favorite song, something that energizes you, so that was one of the things. Also, there's some really fascinating work on mental contrasting. So it's not enough to just visualize the goal that you want and just think that that's enough. you really have to compare that to your current state. And actually, it was interesting because many years ago, before neuroscience became a thing, I had participated in a class, and it was really, I was working on more personal physical health goals and relationship goals. And that was the process, is that we would, you would get firmly rooted, and here's where I am, and here's specifically what's going on right now, and here's what I want. And really doing that mental contrasting, there's some research shows that that really is what triggers your ability to reach a goal if you are and when you are really fully committed to that goal. So very powerful. And then the neuroscience came along and proved that. So in the NeuroSTROLL, and I had a colleague who helped me with this, really just incorporated everything that I had learned about leadership and development. And then the output, I did, let's see, there were 4 different research studies with 4 different groups where it was piloted. And we did a pre and post assessment. And afterwards, people definitely had more confidence that they could reach their goals after being exposed to all these different ways of trying to generate ways to achieve it.
Marcia, that's absolutely fascinating. I love the work of bringing in music or art and color into it. Really creates a different surface for the development, expression, and perhaps growth and leadership that might occur. I think about Carl Jung, and you've heard me say this, that when it comes to integrity and authenticity, one of his observations really rings true to me, and that is that you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. And maybe, a later mentor to me, Bob Keegan, said, well, we are what we do and what we don't do, and what we're not doing as well.
That's true. That's his immunity to change.
That's the immunity to
processing.
change. Right.
Yeah, very powerful.
Yeah, so I see that in your work too. I mean, as a way, as a process, as a way of bringing people along. And as we think about the ways in which you've touched leaders, in whether it's been through the NeuroSTROLL or through untangling work or your work as a teacher, I'd love to talk about the authenticity and what phrases or, words or experiences come to mind when you hear that word, which is appearing with, I think, increasing frequency in all of the human and organizational systems work and literature and pop culture.
Absolutely. So to me, I think of the distinction between doing and being, well, knowing, doing, and being, and the context of leadership, if I'm looking at leadership. And so to me, authenticity has to do with being. It's who you are, who you're being when you're doing, and what you do with who you're being with what you've learned and what you know. And so that, I think that's how I think about it. It's really being your genuine self. And I really like what Rob Goffey and Gareth Jones said.
Sure.
I don't know if you, I'm sure you're familiar.
I worked with Gareth quite extensively for a time at Roche.
Oh my gosh, how lucky. Okay, yeah. So I mean, as you know, he said it's about, they say it's about being yourself in context with skill. So, I mean, I think it isn't just about coming in and just saying whatever you think, and you really have to be aware of the environment you're in, the culture that you're in. I mean, I happen to think that there's a place for diplomacy. I think that that's important. I come from a very humanistic background. A lot of it goes to do unto others as you would do unto yourself. I mean, the golden rule. I mean, if you break everything down. So I think it's authenticity isn't doing one thing and saying another. It's really that people can trust that you're not being a phony, that you're real, and that they can feel safe with you. You're not going to turn on them.
It's such a nice interplay of both integrity and authenticity, because for many, when they describe integrity, they refer to something as being genuine. It's the genuine article. Others might say it's the whole cloth. If you were an engineer, or a structural engineer, you might say, things hang together. So authenticity then, has this genuine article component of it. And it's also about congruency, that my thoughts, my my actions and my words all align, right?
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah. And it promotes, I think, some sort of happiness. And I'm so glad to, hear what you say about humanistic values, because I think you can be an authentic jerk. Not you, Marcia, but I think there are people who can be authentic jerks. Maybe we've met one or two. And it's a contrast with so many things I think we believe when we operate from a set of humanistic values. And certainly one of those values is that everyone deserves to be loved.
Yes, no, absolutely. And, and that everybody is worthy and is on this planet. And so treating everybody with respect and kindness, I think is just kind of the basics. I have a colleague who oversees a whole leadership development program for the government. And, what she says, and I agree with her, is that teaching leadership is teaching people to be good human beings.
And we build what I like to think about as good corporate citizenship as well. When organizations concentrate on growth and development and leadership, it's a way of building citizenship, and that increases engagement and inspires, I think, innovation as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So what benefits arise from authentic behavior in professional relationships, and how do we foster these kinds of things? I think we believe when we lead from humanistic values. So, if I were to expound on a set of humanistic values that I believe fuels the strong moral and ethical stance that is important in integrity, it is, in addition to the belief that everyone deserves to be loved, about respect for the individual, about dignity for the individual, about knowing that we're all in some process of growth and development, and around attracting diverse ideas and diverse people around you so that you can grow inclusion. I think when it's difficult to talk about authenticity and integrity without leading from those sorts of values. Marcia, what benefits arise from authentic behavior in professional relationships?
Well, I think the greatest benefit is that people feel psychologically safe. They can speak up in meetings without feeling that they're going to be shot down and publicly criticized. And when leaders are authentic, I think their team is more likely to share ideas and concerns. For instance, I like to say, okay, if there's a train wreck and you see it coming, you want to be able to raise that issue. So, for example, or a lot of it, I have noticed in a lot of the companies that I worked with, that in some companies it's okay if you make a mistake, and in others it isn't. And I did a project many years ago with a semiconductor company, and a new CEO had come in, and he noticed that people there was no innovation, and he wanted the engineers to take more risks. So I interviewed a number of them, and what they said is that making a mistake in this company could be a career-limiting move. So if they saw somebody made any kind of a mistake, they were fired. So they were kind of shut down, just went on the straight and narrow. And so by working with them, we were able to put in a process where they could take some calculated risk. We actually taught them how to do that. And in fact, the general manager of this one engineering division created an award for people who took risks. So, it was a culture change. It was a mindset change that was needed, and the culture change.
What do you think catalyzed that, Marcia?
I think that people felt, first of all, they were educated, because when I talked to the senior leaders in this company, they said, well, yes, people can take risks, but if you tell the people they can take risks, they may think that means that they can go out and buy $1 million piece of equipment. We don't want them to do that. So part of it was educating people about what was meant by taking risks, what was a calculated risk, and giving them a model and a framework to think it through and to discuss it through. So I think it was the education. And I think it was also the general manager that I was working with who really saw the benefit of it. And he created a reward system, because people will do what's rewarded. And so I think that made a difference as well.
It reminds me of one of the great things that Warren Bennis wrote, and he wrote so many great things about leadership. But certainly, what your illustration, your example, Warren Bennis wrote, more than anything, the difference between a leader and a manager rests on the status quo. Managers are willing to live with it, and leaders are not.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's so true about what you just described. I mean, you had somebody who came in and saw vision. And this is what I often wonder about the coaching relationship and how you enter that authentically is, do you begin with the client's vision or that goal-directed behavior, things that might translate eventually towards goal-directed behavior, or do you lean into the pain points first?
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, I think it depends on the client. I don't think that there's the one standard way. I mean, because everybody's so unique. I mean, that's a beautiful thing about coaching and what makes it a real craft to be able to master it is, number one, to be, make sure that you don't have, I believe a coach should do their own personal development and be aware of their own limiting beliefs, et cetera. And then to really be able to be fully present with the client and figure out what the best, what's the best approach. For some, it is very goal oriented. For others, it's let's go into who you are and what's your vision and what's your purpose. I think it depends. I don't think there's a one size fits all approach.
So, Marcia, it's really a compliment to thinking about authentic leadership, because authentic leadership, as you know, relies so much on the development of trusting and trustworthy relationships between and among colleagues, replacing guarded and cautious communication with open and transparent communication. It requires a sense of openness. So as a coach or in coaching situations, how do you begin to engage so that you easily and quickly establish trust with another person? There might be some insights for leaders into this.
Well, I mean, I think part of it is just, for me, it's caring. I'm with another human being and just genuinely having my heart open. And many years ago, I went through some different kind of spiritual practices where we actually practiced that, was opening your heart, getting out of your head and into your heart. So I think being in that space, open-hearted, really present, concerned, I think that gets communicated. I mean, certainly in person in the last year for sure. And I had been doing this before, but working, even coaching on Zoom, I think you can feel somebody's presence and know if they're there for you and they care about you. And that, and I think it's important for a coach to both be supportive, and to also be willing to challenge your client. If what they're saying is BS or is going to result in them having a train wreck, I think it's up to the coach to also be willing to provide that kind of confrontive, challenging feedback in a kind way, in a way that gets heard, but in a very direct way. So it's being caring and direct.
Presence is a great gift that a consultant or a coach brings to a situation. That because I don't know what happened to you 5 minutes ago. I don't know what happened to you yesterday. I don't know what's going to happen to you tomorrow, but I do have this moment in time with you. And I think that's where, we see differences between managing and coaching, that coaches are willing to slow down to the extent that they embrace a conversation with another person versus a manager who's often at the risk of, I need this to be done. How can we accomplish X in the shortest amount of time?
I think that's a really good distinction. And as you know, a lot of companies are teaching their managers and leaders coaching skills because that's so important for the development of their employees. And so I'm so happy to see that. And I participated in some of those workshops teaching people that.
And I think that's great. And I think, for me, a lot of that arises from our colleague, Daria Funches, who identified these great gifts in the coaching and consulting and transforming process. She wrote about the gift of hope or heart, the gift of presence and discernment.
Mm-mm.
being able to help somebody figure out what's the work here and what's not work here.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's beautifully stated.
Yeah, being really fully present with someone. And Daria referred to it as heart, but I think that a more accurate description is hope. That, for many people, what the coach does is bring a sense of hope. We're often working at issues where it's about scaling, right? Moving from a manager to a manager of managers or some other transition point. Or perhaps it's built around blind spots that someone may have. Or, as you've described, individuals who want to pursue some sort of goal-directed behavior immediately.
I think it's all. I think it's all of the above. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were to offer your students, your colleagues, some key lessons, what would those be as they relate to authenticity and integrity?
Well, so I guess one of the first courses that I designed at Golden Gate University for our executive MBA was a course in personal leadership, and it incorporated a lot of what I had learned, and I'm still learning about leadership development. And so I rely a lot on what Bob Anderson and Bill Adams wrote in Leadership Mastery, that leadership develops from the inside out. So I think some key lessons are for leaders are to take time to get to know yourself. And I found that many of the students in our MBA and executive MBA program, and even now our Masters in Leadership, haven't ever taken the time to do that. So know your purpose and your values, know your strengths, what you're good at, and know what you're not good at. I think it's also important to be aware of your beliefs, and especially limiting beliefs that lead you to doubt yourself. So I think it's important to become aware of your inner critic. Thank it. Thank you very much. And thanks for all that you've done for me. And replace with a more empowering pal on your shoulder. So I think, knowing that because of neuroplasticity, we can transform, we can change our beliefs and our thinking and therefore our actions. I think it's also important to hone your emotional intelligence skills, to develop an internal compass. So really that you're the chairman of your internal board of directors. And then finally, and I know this is a long list, but be aware of your capacity for complexity and know that you can transform your thinking so you can be an even more effective leader in these VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous times.
I love the idea of being chair of your own BOD, of your board of directors. I think about that in a similar way. I say you are the captain of your ship. You're at the helm here. And, I think as our, dear colleagues, Charlie and Edie used to say, if the responsible adult showed up,
right. What would
he or she do? Right.
What would you do if you're an adult? And it's funny, my dad always said to me, "You're the captain of your ship." And I remember the first time he said that to me, I was like, "What?" And then I internalized it, and that was so profound. It was when I was in between careers, and I was sitting around worrying, and he goes, "Marcia, you're the captain of your ship."
Right. Yeah. It's a lesson I think that, many often forget, particularly those in leadership roles because in many ways they've been leading all of their lives and they've been rewarded for doing that.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the change. Marcia, it's been awesome for me and for our audience to hear from you, given all the paths and lives that you're touching. It's just an honor and a treat. If our listeners wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
I think the very best way is by email. So my email is Marcia, Marcia, at Ruben, Ruben, consulting.com. And then I also have a website that's www.leadershiptangles.com. So they can get in touch with me either of those two ways. And I'd be delighted to hear from anyone.
Oh, that's great. So Marcia's giving you the email, and also at leadershiptangles.com. Please visit her. Those are two ways to get in touch with her. Marcia, it's just been an absolute delight to hear about your journey, what's led you to help transform the lives of individuals and organizations, and to do that out of your purpose. Everyone, thank you so much. I appreciate you tuning into this episode of Authentic Change with Mike Horne. Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll subscribe today and tell a friend about our show. If you're looking for hands-on help to increase your success through authentic change, or have a question you'd like to hear me answer here, please email me at mike@mike-horne.com.